In a quaint little town nestled between rolling hills, there lived a young woman named Emily, whose spirit burned brightly despite the shadows cast by societal expectations. Emily was known for her unwavering faith and resilience, traits that her friends admired, but that often made her feel isolated in a world filled with skepticism. Her heart belonged to Daniel, a charming young man with a daring heart and a bright future ahead of him as a soldier. They met during a community event at their church, where laughter mingled with the aroma of freshly baked goods, and hope hung in the air like the gentle notes of a choir. Their love blossomed quietly, hidden away from the prying eyes of their families. Daniel's parents had always dreamed of a prestigious life for him, one filled with accolades and opportunities. They could not fathom the idea of their son falling for someone who, to them, seemed beneath their status. Meanwhile, Emily's family harbored similar concerns, viewing Daniel's military career as a perilous path fraught with uncertainty. Despite the disapproval, Emily and Daniel found solace in each other's arms, sharing whispered dreams of a future where their love could thrive, free from judgment. As summer turned to fall, the leaves began to turn, mirroring the changes in their lives. The season brought not only colorful foliage, but also a sense of impending change. Daniel received his deployment orders, a bittersweet moment that filled their hearts with both pride and dread. They spent every precious moment together, walking hand in hand under the canopy of trees, sharing secrets and promises. "I'll return for you, Emily, no matter what," he said one crisp evening, his voice steady, filled with a conviction that sent shivers down her spine. On the eve of his departure, they stood at the edge of the town's park, surrounded by twinkling stars that seemed to shine just for them. Emily's heart raced as she gazed into Daniel's deep blue eyes. "Promise me you'll stay safe," she urged, her voice trembling with fear. Daniel cupped her face in his hands. "I promise, my love. Just keep believing in us." With that, they shared a passionate kiss, sealing their commitment to one another under the watchful eyes of the universe. The next morning came too quickly, bringing with it a wave of sadness that enveloped Emily as she waved goodbye. Watching Daniel walk away, she felt an emptiness in her heart, a void that echoed with uncertainty. Days turned into weeks, and each sunrise brought the same ache of longing. She poured her heart into her faith, attending church services regularly and volunteering to help others, hoping to fill the void left by Daniel's absence. Her friends encouraged her, reminding her that love could conquer distance, but each moment felt heavier than the ultimo. As time marched on, Emily clung to her dreams of their future, cherishing every letter that arrived, filled with Daniel's words of love and encouragement. However, the clouds of doubt began to gather as whispers of disapproval from her family grew louder. They questioned her choice, urging her to find someone more suitable, someone they could approve of. Emily's resolve wavered at times, but the fire of her love for Daniel remained unextinguishable. In her heart, Emily knew their love was worth fighting for. She believed that true love could overcome any obstacle, including the barriers erected by their families. Little did she know, their journey was just beginning, and the trials they would face would test their love in ways they could never imagine. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Emily found herself navigating a sea of emotions, her heart anchored by the love she shared with Daniel. The letters he sent from overseas became her lifeline, filled with stories of camaraderie and adventure, yet overshadowed by the haunting uncertainty of war. Each envelope that arrived brought both joy and anxiety as she eagerly tore it open, desperate to absorb his words, to feel his presence through the ink on the page. Then one fateful afternoon, while the sun bathed the town in a golden hue, Emily received a letter that would change her life forever. As she read the opening lines, her heart sank. It was not a love letter, but rather an official notification informing her that Daniel had been deployed on a mission, one deemed perilous and critical. The words seemed to blur as her eyes filled with tears. The weight of her fears settled heavily on her chest, making it difficult to breathe. She placed the letter down gently, her mind racing with thoughts of what could happen next. Determined to remain strong, Emily leaned into her faith. She began attending church more frequently, seeking solace in the familiar hymns and the comforting embrace of her community. The pastor spoke of hope and resilience, his voice echoing through the sanctuary like a balm for her soul. Emily joined a group of women who gathered every Thursday to pray for their loved ones in service. Together, they shared their worries, fears, and hopes, forming a bond that transcended their individual struggles. With the news of Daniel's mission weighing heavily on her mind, Emily took to volunteering at the local shelter. There, she found purpose in helping those less fortunate, providing meals and companionship to those in need. She discovered that in giving her time and love to others, she could distract herself from the gnawing anxiety about Daniel's safety. Each smile she received from those she helped reminded her of the goodness in the world and the strength of the human spirit. Months slipped by, and with each passing day, Emily felt the pangs of loneliness grow sharper. The nights were particularly difficult, filled with silence that echoed the absence of Daniel. She would often lay awake, clutching his photograph, whispering her hopes and dreams into the stillness of the night. "Please come back to me," she would murmur, feeling a flicker of hope with each plea. Then came the day she had been both dreading and longing for. She learned that Daniel was coming home on leave for a short visit. The news sent waves of excitement through her, eclipsing her worries momentarily. The thought of seeing him again filled her heart with joy and anticipation. She spent days preparing, decorating her small apartment, and cooking his favorite meals, all while counting down the hours until his arrival. When the day finally came, Emily stood at the window, watching for his familiar figure. Her heart raced as she spotted him walking toward her, dressed in his military uniform, a sight that both thrilled and terrified her. The moment their eyes met, time seemed to freeze. Daniel ran to her, sweeping her into a warm embrace that made all the months of separation fade away. "I missed you so much," he whispered into her hair, and for that fleeting moment, the worries of the world melted away. However, the bliss of their reunion was tempered by the unspoken tension in the air. They both knew the challenges that lay ahead. The uncertainties of war and the weight of their family's disapproval still loomed large. As they sat together, sharing stories and laughter, Emily felt a storm brewing within her, a mixture of joy, fear, and a deep longing for a future that felt more uncertain than ever. The days that followed Daniel's brief visit passed in a blur for Emily, each moment filled with a bittersweet mixture of joy and sorrow. The warmth of their reunion lingered in her heart, yet the reality of his imminent return to the battlefield hung like a dark cloud over her. Each tick of the clock felt like a reminder of the fleeting time they had together, and she clung to the memories they had created, wrapping herself in the comfort of his laughter and his unwavering gaze. Then, one fateful afternoon, the world as Emily knew it shattered. She was in the kitchen, preparing a simple meal, when the doorbell rang. A chill ran down her spine, and an unsettling feeling washed over her. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and opened the door, only to be met by two solemn figures in military uniforms. They stood there, their expressions grave, and her heart plummeted. In that moment, she felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. "Are you Emily Carter?" one of the officers asked, his voice steady but laden with a weight she could scarcely comprehend. She nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. The world around her blurred, and she barely heard the words that followed, words that would haunt her dreams and silence her laughter. "We regret to inform you that Lieutenant Daniel Thompson has been declared missing in action." The world tilted, and Emily felt as if she were falling. Her breath caught in her throat, and a cold wave of disbelief washed over her. She had heard of soldiers going missing, of families torn apart by the uncertainty of war, but never had she imagined it would happen to her. The officers spoke of protocols and searches, but all she could hear was the deafening silence in her heart, the void that threatened to swallow her whole. Days turned into weeks, yet the grief did not fade. Emily found herself floating through life like a ghost, lost in a fog of despair. She wore a mask of normalcy for the sake of her friends and family, attending church and participating in community activities. But inside, she felt hollow. The vibrant colors of her world had turned to shades of gray, each day blending into the next without purpose or meaning. Desperate for answers, she buried herself in research about military procedures, hoping to find a glimmer of hope that Daniel might still be alive. Late at night, she would scour the internet for news, praying for any sign of him. But each news search yielded only more heartbreak, as she read stories of other families grappling with the same pain. It felt as if the universe was conspiring to crush her spirit, and she struggled to hold on to the flickering flame of hope that Daniel might return. In her darkest moments, Emily sought refuge in her faith. She spent hours in the church, lighting candles and praying fervently for Daniel's safety. The pastor, sensing her anguish, offered words of comfort and community support, encouraging her to lean on those around her. "You are not alone in this," he would say, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. The warmth of the congregation provided a semblance of solace, yet the void left by Daniel's absence felt insurmountable. Months slipped by, and as the seasons changed, so did Emily's perception of the world around her. Winter's chill mirrored her heartache, and the holidays arrived with an ache that felt unbearable. Friends and family tried to include her in celebrations, but the laughter and joy of others felt like a distant echo, a cruel reminder of the happiness she had lost. One cold December evening, as snowflakes danced outside her window, Emily felt an overwhelming urge to honor Daniel. She gathered his photographs, letters, and mementos, creating a small altar in her living room. As she lit candles, she whispered stories of their love, recounting memories that made her smile and cry in equal measure. In that moment of vulnerability, she felt closer to him than she had in months. Just when she thought she could bear the weight of her sorrow no longer, a flicker of hope emerged from the darkness. A letter arrived, its contents shaking her to the core. It was from a fellow soldier who had served with Daniel, detailing a harrowing escape and the courage of her beloved. With trembling hands, Emily read about the bravery and resilience of Daniel and his comrades in the face of overwhelming odds. This letter ignited a spark within her, rekindling her faith in their love and the belief that Daniel could still come home. Emily vowed to keep that hope alive, no matter how long it took. Though the pain of missing Daniel was deep and persistent, she found strength in the love they had shared and in the community that surrounded her. With each passing day, she chose to believe that Daniel's story was far from over. As the winter snow melted into spring, Emily's life began to change in ways she had never anticipated. The flicker of hope that Daniel might still be alive had transformed into a steady flame, warming her heart as the world around her bloomed anew. With each passing day, Emily felt a surge of determination to honor his memory and to prepare for the life that awaited her. The news of her pregnancy had come as a shock, an unexpected twist in a story already filled with uncertainty. When she first felt the fluttering movements within her, a rush of emotions enveloped her: fear, joy, and an overwhelming sense of responsibility. As the reality of becoming a mother sank in, she felt both elated and terrified. How would she navigate this journey alone, especially with Daniel still missing? The thought consumed her, but she knew she had to remain strong for the sake of her unborn child. Emily threw herself into preparations, transforming her small apartment into a haven for the new life growing inside her. She painted the nursery in soft pastels, hung up pictures of nature, and filled the room with little trinkets that spoke of love and hope. She found comfort in creating a space where her child could feel safe and cherished. Each brushstroke and every little detail became a prayer for Daniel's safe return, a silent promise to their child that they would always carry their father's love with them. With the support of her friends from the church, Emily attended prenatal classes and joined a support group for expectant mothers. It was here that she found camaraderie, sharing laughs and tears with women who understood her struggles. They shared advice on everything from parenting to personal care, creating a strong network that lifted her spirits. Emily appreciated the sense of community, recognizing that she was no longer alone in her journey. Together, they celebrated milestones and provided comfort during tough times, forming a bond that transcended their individual experiences. As the months passed, Emily's body changed, and so did her outlook on life. The mornings were often filled with nausea, but she learned to embrace the little joys, like feeling the baby kick or hearing its heartbeat at the doctor's office. Those moments became precious reminders that life, even in the midst of turmoil, could be beautiful. Her faith deepened, and she began to pray not just for Daniel's return, but for the strength to be the mother her child needed. Yet, even as hope flourished, Emily couldn't escape the looming shadow of doubt. The nights were often long, filled with worries about her future and the future of her child. What if Daniel never came back? Would she be enough? The thought weighed heavily on her heart, but she pushed through the darkness, reminding herself of the love that had created this new life. She often found herself holding on to the letters Daniel had written, poring over his words, finding strength in his unwavering love. The day finally arrived when she would welcome her child into the world. The anticipation filled the air with a palpable energy, and Emily felt both excited and anxious. Surrounded by friends from the church and the supportive family of Daniel, she felt empowered. The moment her son, whom she named Gabriel, took his first breath, Emily felt an overwhelming rush of love wash over her. Tears streamed down her face as she cradled him in her arms, a living testament to her love for Daniel. In that moment, the chaos of the past few years faded away. Emily's heart swelled with pride, knowing she was now a mother, and Gabriel would carry forward the love of both his parents. She gazed at him, cherishing the miracle of life and recognizing that she would do anything to protect him. The bond they shared was immediate and profound, a connection that transcended words. As the weeks turned into months, Emily found herself settling into the role of a mother. Each day was filled with new challenges and joys, from sleepless nights to the first smiles from Gabriel. She learned to find beauty in the mundane moments, feeding him, rocking him to sleep, and even the late-night diaper changes. With every giggle and coo, her heart healed a little more, and she began to believe in the possibility of happiness again. Emily continued to visit the church regularly, bringing Gabriel along to share the joy of motherhood with her community. The congregation welcomed him with open arms, celebrating the miracle of life in the midst of uncertainty. Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose, embracing the notion that even in times of darkness, light could still shine through. As she stood in the church one Sunday, watching the sunlight filter through the stained glass windows, Emily made a silent promise to Daniel. She would raise Gabriel to know his father's love and bravery, teaching him the values of faith, compassion, and resilience. She envisioned a future where they would celebrate not just the memories of Daniel, but also the legacy of love he had left behind. Little did she know that life had more surprises in store. While she remained steadfast in her beliefs, a significant change was on the horizon that would challenge her faith and bring her closer to the truth she had longed to hear. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting golden rays into Emily's modest home, she found herself in a moment of quiet reflection. Gabriel, now a few months old, lay peacefully in his crib, cooing softly. Each day was a new adventure filled with laughter and love. Yet deep down, Emily carried the weight of longing. Despite the joy her son brought her, the absence of Daniel loomed like a shadow, reminding her of the love that still existed in the recesses of her heart. One ordinary afternoon, while tending to Gabriel, Emily received a phone call that would change everything. The familiar sound of her phone ringing cut through the stillness. When she answered, a voice on the other end sent a jolt of disbelief through her. "Emily, this is Lieutenant Harper. I have news about Daniel." Her heart raced, pounding in her chest as a whirlwind of emotions surged within her. Could this be the moment she had been waiting for? Is he okay? Emily's voice trembled as she fought to keep her composure. The officer's words tumbled out, each syllable carrying the weight of hope and fear. "He's alive, Emily. He escaped from captivity. We're bringing him home. A flood of emotions washed over her. Relief, joy, and a tidal wave of disbelief. Tears streamed down her face as she struggled to process the magnitude of what she had just heard. After hanging up, Emily sank to her knees, overwhelmed by gratitude and disbelief. Daniel was alive. The promise she had held on to for so long was finally becoming a reality. But along with her joy came the understanding that he had endured unimaginable hardships. In that moment, she knew she had to prepare herself for the man who would walk through her door, her husband, but also a survivor shaped by his experiences. As days passed in eager anticipation, Emily began to prepare for Daniel's return. She cleaned the house from top to bottom, arranging everything just right. It felt surreal, like a dream slowly coming to life. She envisioned the moment he would step through the door, the embrace that would heal the wounds of separation, and the joy that would envelop them as a family. The thought of seeing him cradling Gabriel filled her with warmth. The day of his arrival dawned bright and clear. Emily dressed Gabriel in a crisp outfit, adding a tiny cap that matched his father's military uniform. She paced the living room, her heart racing as the hours crawled by. With each passing moment, the excitement grew, mingling with a tinge of nervousness. How had the war changed him? Would he still be the same man she fell in love with? Finally, the sound of a car pulling into the driveway sent a jolt of adrenaline through her. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she rushed to the door, throwing it open. Standing there, in a slightly rumpled uniform with a look of disbelief mirrored on his face, was Daniel. For a heartbeat, time stood still. "Emily," he breathed, his voice hoarse with emotion. Without hesitation, she launched herself into his arms, feeling the warmth and strength of his embrace envelop her. Tears of joy streamed down her face as she clung to him, overwhelmed by the reality of his presence. "You're home! You're really home!" she cried, burying her face in his shoulder. As they pulled apart, Daniel's eyes found Gabriel, who was gazing up at his father with wide, curious eyes. "Is this my son?" he asked, his voice trembling with emotion. Emily nodded, her heart swelling with pride as she placed Gabriel in his arms. "Yes, this is Gabriel. Our miracle," she whispered, watching as Daniel cradled their child, a look of pure love washing over his face. In that moment, everything felt right. The trials they had endured seemed to fade away as they stood together as a family, united once more. Daniel's smile was contagious, and for the first time in a long while, Emily felt the weight of the world lift from her shoulders. They shared stories, laughter, and the warmth of a love that had withstood the test of time and adversity. However, as the evening wore on, Emily could sense the undercurrents of change. Daniel had experienced things she couldn't begin to understand, and she knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be scars, both visible and invisible, that they would need to navigate together. But for that moment, she chose to embrace the joy of their reunion, allowing hope to fill the spaces where doubt once resided. As they settled into their new reality, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She would stand by Daniel's side, supporting him as he adjusted to life at home. Together, they would face the challenges ahead, building a future filled with love, understanding, and resilience. Little did they know, their journey was far from over, and the trials they had yet to face would test the strength of their bond like never before. The sun streamed through the curtains as Emily prepared for the day, her heart still fluttering from the joy of Daniel's return. The previous night had been filled with laughter, stories, and a sense of normalcy that had been absent for so long. But as dawn broke, she couldn't shake the feeling that their reunion was just the beginning of a new chapter filled with uncertainties and challenges. Daniel was home, yet she sensed an undercurrent of tension in him that hadn't been there before. As he held Gabriel, she noticed how he sometimes stared into the distance, lost in thought. He would smile, but there was a heaviness in his eyes that spoke volumes. Emily knew that while the joy of reunion was palpable, the scars of war were not easily erased. She resolved to be patient, giving him space to process everything while also ensuring he felt welcomed and loved. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine that felt comforting yet fragile. Daniel helped with Gabriel, changing diapers and rocking him to sleep, often sharing anecdotes about the silly things he did during training. Emily couldn't help but smile at the sight of her two boys together. Yet, she remained acutely aware of the silence that often enveloped Daniel when he thought no one was looking. She knew he was grappling with memories and feelings that were difficult to articulate. One evening, as they sat on the porch, Emily decided it was time to open up a dialogue. "Daniel," she began softly, "I know things have changed. If you ever want to talk about what you went through, I'm here." Her heart raced, the words tumbling out as she braced herself for his reaction. Daniel turned to her, his expression a mix of gratitude and apprehension. "I appreciate that, Em. I really do. It's just, some things are hard to share." Emily nodded, understanding that healing would take time. "You don't have to say anything right now," she assured him. "Just know that I'm here for you, no matter what." They sat in silence for a moment, the stars twinkling above them, each one a reminder of the vast universe they were a part of, and how small moments together could heal the deepest wounds. As the days turned into weeks, Emily watched Daniel try to reintegrate into their small-town life. He visited the local barbershop and grocery store, smiling politely at familiar faces. However, she noticed that he often struggled with the mundane aspects of everyday life, as if he was still caught in a world where the rules were different, where danger lurked around every corner. She tried to engage him in conversations about their future, but each time, he would deflect, focusing instead on Gabriel and their new family life. Emily decided to invite Daniel's parents over for dinner, hoping that a warm, family gathering would ease some of his tension. As they prepared the meal together, she sensed a shift in Daniel's demeanor. He seemed more present, his laughter coming easier as they chopped vegetables and shared memories of their early days. However, as the evening wore on, the shadow of the past crept back into the conversation. When Daniel's parents arrived, the atmosphere lightened considerably. They were overjoyed to see their son and their grandson. "You have no idea how proud we are of you," his mother exclaimed, wrapping him in a tight embrace. "We've been waiting for this moment." Emily watched as Daniel's eyes glistened with tears, a mixture of happiness and pain evident in his expression. Over dinner, the conversation flowed, filled with laughter and nostalgia. Yet, Emily noticed Daniel withdraw again, his gaze shifting to the window as shadows played across the walls. In an attempt to bridge the gap, she turned to him, saying, "We're so grateful to have you back, Daniel. You're our hero." His mother chimed in, "Yes, it takes a special kind of bravery to do what you've done." But Daniel only nodded, a distant look in his eyes. After dinner, as everyone settled into the living room, Emily felt the tension rise. It was as if the room was charged with unspoken words. She gently placed her hand on Daniel's knee, silently encouraging him to share his feelings. But just then, a loud crash from the kitchen startled everyone, breaking the tension. It was Gabriel, who had knocked over a stack of books. Emily rushed to pick him up, grateful for the distraction. As the evening wound down, Daniel's parents took their leave, their faces beaming with pride, but Emily felt a nagging worry in the pit of her stomach. She turned to Daniel, who was staring at the door long after they had left. "What's on your mind?" she asked softly. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I just feel so different. I thought coming home would feel like coming back to myself, but it's harder than I imagined." Emily's heart ached for him. "You're still you, Daniel. It just might take some time to adjust. We'll get through this together." She reached out, squeezing his hand reassuringly. That night, as they lay in bed, Emily snuggled closer, whispering, "We'll find our way back to each other. Just remember, I'm here for you always." Daniel turned to her, his eyes reflecting both the love and the struggle he felt. "I know," he murmured, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to believe it. As the days turned into weeks, Emily and Daniel continued to navigate their new reality as a family. The initial joy of reunion began to settle into a comforting routine. Yet Emily could still sense the underlying tension within Daniel. He was home, but the war had left its mark on him, both physically and emotionally. Each night, she could hear him tossing and turning, haunted by dreams that pulled him back to those dark days. Determined to support him, Emily found ways to foster open communication. She encouraged Daniel to share his feelings, to talk about the moments that troubled him. Slowly, he began to open up, recounting stories from his time in service, some that filled him with pride and others that brought shame. Each confession was like peeling back a layer of the onion, revealing the rawness underneath. "E sofis eminancia, things I wish I could unsee," he confessed one evening, his voice barely above a whisper. Emily listened intently, her heart aching for the pain he carried. In an effort to bring back some normalcy, Emily suggested they take Gabriel to the park. She hoped that the fresh air and laughter would help Daniel connect with their son in a way that felt authentic and free. That Saturday morning, they packed a picnic and headed out, the sun shining brightly overhead. As they settled on a blanket, Gabriel's laughter rang out as he played on the grass, his joy infectious. For the first time in a while, Daniel smiled genuinely, the weight on his shoulders seeming to lighten, if only for a moment. "Look at him," Emily said, beaming with pride as she watched Gabriel chase after butterflies. "He's full of life, just like you were when you were a kid." Daniel chuckled, reminiscing about simpler times. "I used to run through the fields with my friends, dreaming of the future." Emily's heart warmed at the memory, hoping to reignite the spark in Daniel that had been dimmed by his experiences. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, Emily felt a shift in the air. Daniel turned to her, his eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and uncertainty. "I want to be the husband and father you deserve. I want to be present for you and Gabriel," he said, determination creeping into his voice. "But I know it won't be easy." Emily took his hand, squeezing it tightly. "We'll take it one day at a time, together." Encouraged by their small victory, Emily began to plan more family outings, trying to keep the momentum of positivity flowing. They visited the zoo, the aquarium, and even took Gabriel on nature hikes. Each new adventure brought laughter, strengthening the bond between them as they created precious memories together. Daniel started to engage more, laughing at Gabriel's antics, participating in conversations, and even finding joy in the little moments. However, Emily knew that healing would take time. Daniel still had his dark days, moments when he would retreat into himself, lost in thoughts she couldn't reach. On those days, she focused on being his anchor, reminding him of their love and the life they were building together. "You're not alone, Daniel," she would say, wrapping her arms around him. "We're in this together." One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Daniel turned to her with a serious expression. "I want to make things right," he said. "I want to give back to the community, to help others like I once needed help." Emily smiled, proud of his desire to turn his pain into purpose. "That's a beautiful idea. We can start small, volunteering, mentoring other veterans, or even sharing our story." Inspired by this new mission, they began volunteering at the local community center, offering support to families affected by war. Daniel found a sense of purpose in helping others, and Emily could see the change it brought to him. It was as if the act of giving back helped to heal the wounds that had been festering inside him. Months passed, and the seasons began to change once again. Gabriel was growing, taking his first steps and uttering his first words, bringing boundless joy into their lives. Emily and Daniel found themselves falling in love all over again, rediscovering the beauty of their connection. The weight of the past still lingered, but together they were learning to live in the present, embracing the future that awaited them. One quiet evening, as they sat together in the living room, watching Gabriel play, Daniel turned to Emily, his eyes filled with determination. "I want to build a life that honors both of our pasts," he said. "I want to create a home filled with love, laughter, and hope." Emily nodded, her heart swelling with pride. "We're already doing that, Daniel. One step at a time." In that moment, she knew that while their journey had been fraught with challenges, they had emerged stronger together. Their love was a testament to resilience, a beacon of light that would guide them through whatever lay ahead. As they shared a kiss, Emily realized that they were not just rebuilding their lives, but also forging a new path, one filled with love, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Enjoy the story. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Share your thoughts in the comments and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next thrilling episode. See you in our next video. Take care